Hello, and welcome to Bookcast 12. Can you believe we're at Bookcast 12 already? Well, today we're continuing our Harry Potter discussion by talking about Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. I'm going to be discussing major plot points here because if I talked more about the book, more about the ending, well then the video will be too long. So, where do we leave off into Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1? Well, here's where we left off, and welcome to it, and welcome. And spoiler alerts ahead. Harry, Ron, and Hermione are still mourning over the death of Dobby, the house elf who died protecting them, by transporting them away from Malfoy Manor. And Dumbledore now has the Elder Wand by taking it from Dumbledore's tomb. So what does Harry, Ron, and Hermione need to do? They're informed by one of the Gringotts goblins that another Horcrux may be in Bellatrix Lestrange's vault. Hermione takes Polyjuice Potion to disguise herself as Bellatrix, and they go and they succeed, struggling, but they succeed into entering the vault, where they find the Horcrux. When Harry does manage to find the cup of the Helga Hufflepuff's cup, they soon realize that the goblin has betrayed them and takes the Sword of Gryffindor with him. Sadly, this is not going to bode well for him. While Harry tries to get to the Horcrux, he realizes that the more he tries to get to it, more stuff is piling onto him in the vault in order to prevent him, and they were attacked by a dragon. As a result, Harry does destroy the Horcrux and leaves Gringotts Banks with Ron and Hermione. That goblin who betrays Voldemort is soon taken by Voldemort when he finds out when Voldemort enters the bank and Harry is no longer in sight and the Horcrux has been destroyed. He and a bunch of other goblins are killed at the hands of Dumbledore in front of a shocked Narcissa, Lucius, and Draco Malfoy, who are now realizing they have picked the wrong side in this wizarding war. So what do? Well, they decide, they can't do anything at this point because all they can do is try to avoid as much conflict as possible because they're too deep in the hole to get out. Harry, Ron, and Hermione decide they're going to go back to Hogwarts to prepare for the final battle. And Harry, Ron, and Hermione do. They're reunited with members of the Order of the Phoenix by sending them a message. Harry then informs them what's about to happen. And then, they're like, what other Horcruxes out there? They say, a ring's been destroyed, a locket, a diary, and now the cup. There are 3 more left. According to Harry, Nagini is another Horcrux, and they know that's going to be hard for them to kill because Nagini, Voldemort's snake, is always near him, and at this point he's going to be protected. And he says, have any other founders left behind an item? Godric Gryffindor had his sword, Salazar Slytherin had his locket, and Luna says, Verona Ravenclaw had a diadem. But Cho Chang says, Harry's old crush Cho Chang says, but no one has seen that diadem in centuries. And so Harry's like, neither did. No one saw the locket, the cup, or the sword. And since the sword is not a Horcrux, it has to be the diadem. But before Harry could continue on his journey to go to find the diadem, they're interrupted by an emergency Hogwarts meeting by none other than Headmaster Snape. And when Harry arrives under disguise, he finally comes forward and yells at Snape for killing Dumbledore, who trusted him. Right before Snape can duel Harry, however, McGonagall steps in and duels Snape. But Harry mentions that Snape is not fighting at his full power to defeat McGonagall. Instead, he fights for a little while with defensive spells and then leaves. McGonagall then calling him a coward. So where do we go from here? McGonagall then confronts the other Slytherin students who wants to turn Harry in. And McGonagall says, we're not doing that, since most of Slytherins are purebloods, and whose parents are Voldemort's followers and supporters. McGonagall then orders Filch to lock all the Slytherins in the dungeons. While Harry says, "What do you need?" McGonagall tells Harry what does he need. Harry tells McGonagall that he needs time, and he says, "I'll give as much time as we can provide." He then tells all students who are going to be battling at Hogwarts to stay with her, while other students who are preparing to hide during the battle are going to be hiding, are going to go into their hiding places, because the battle is about to take place with Voldemort followers getting ready for this epic battle with members of the Order of the Phoenix. So when the battle begins to take place, Luna tries to confront Harry by saying that Luna can't talk now. And Luna, who's so soft-spoken, begins to say, "Harry Potter, you listen to me right now." He then tells Harry, since no one alive knows where the diadem is, they need to talk to someone who's dead. And she introduces her to Ravenclaw's ghost, who's actually Winona's daughter, who hid the diadem away. Winona's daughter gives Harry a clue to where the diadem is, and this clue tells him where places where you want to keep a secret. He knows that the diadem is in the Room of Requirements, but before he can go to the Room of Requirements, the Battle of Hogwarts takes place, and there's so many deaths that I'll be running a list through them instead of describing them, because once again, the video has to be at a certain length. So while Harry finds the diadem, he's confronted by Draco and his friends Crabbe and Goyle, but during this confrontation, Crabbe and Goyle turn against Draco by saying and they turn against Draco, and that leads to an argument. Harry then secretly takes the diadem away. So while Ron and Hermione finally catch up with Harry during the Battle of Hogwarts and everybody's fighting for their lives, Ron and Hermione say that Ron and Hermione notice that there's a fire starting, and then Ron runs away screaming that the place is on fire, and this ends in the death of Draco's friend Goyle. And that's actually really sad for Draco, because he didn't want his friend to die. So they escape, so the trio, Ron and Crabbe escape, and Harry destroys the diadem. And this leaves Voldemort upset, because he now has to keep Nagini safe, because he thinks Nagini is the last Horcrux. During this Battle of Hogwarts, during the aftermath, we find out that many other wizards have died during this battle. Nymphadora and Remus, who leave behind their son Teddy, who's now an orphan, like Harry is, Fred Weasley, Colin, so many people, Lavender Brown, so many brave wizards have died during this battle. And when Harry, Ron, and Hermione go to confront Severus Snape in the Secret Shack, they find out they actually hear Voldemort kill Snape. And Harry tries to comfort Snape during his last moments, but he realizes the wound is just too deep for him to heal. And Snape says, "I just want to look into your eyes." And he gives Harry his memories. So while the battle is at a peaceful moment with the dead and the injured being collected, Harry decides to go look at Snape's memories. Harry finds out Snape has been a double agent the entire time. The truth about him has been revealed. He was in love with Lily's mother. Snape was in love with Harry's mother, Lily. And even though Harry is the proof that Lily never loved him back, it was everything that it was shown. You know, how heartbroken he was that he was a Slytherin and Lily was a Gryffindor. That Lily married his bully James, even though he has changed. It was really sad, but he still loved her and became a double agent when he finds out that Lily's life will be in danger. And despite being heartbroken over the death of Lily at Voldemort's hands, he still worked for Dumbledore as a double agent. While everybody believed he was looking for Voldemort's followers believed he was on him, everything that Snape has been done to protect Harry. And Harry is shocked. He realizes that Snape has always been good and never been bad. But he also realizes that he needs to die and doesn't know what to do. So he goes and he decides to just walk straight to the forest, not talking to anyone, not even Ginny, to go to the forest. When he enters the forest, he meets Voldemort, who's now captured Hagrid, and kills him. And Voldemort does the killing curse on Harry. But Harry only dies temporarily, and Voldemort's knocked unconscious. When Narcissa goes to see if Harry's dead, instead Narcissa says, "Is he alive? Is Draco alive?" Harry nods his head, and Narcissa says, "Dead." That means that he knows if they're going to go back to Hogwarts, where he could be reunited with Draco. And then Voldemort boasts in his victory how Harry Potter is now dead, but Neville says it's not over. And Draco and his family decide they're not going to fight anymore, and they're no longer on the side of the Dark Lord, but they're kind of in an awkward position. Harry then shows up and is like, I'm alive, and the battle continues. So Voldemort and Harry continued to fight, and continued to fight. A bunch of the house elves that were in hiding were now fighting alongside the Order of the Phoenix members. Bellatrix Lestrange, a villain. The villain is murdered by Molly Weasley, who's still angry over the death of her son, Fred. And then Voldemort meets his end when Neville Longbottom kills Nagini, the last Horcrux. So when Nagini is killed, Voldemort is killed in his duel with Harry, and everybody's happy with a victory, but still mourning over the loss of so many people who have lost their lives there. Harry then decides to go to the woods, and Luna boasts a distraction so Harry can go to the woods. He places the Elder Wand and the wand that Voldemort left behind, the Elder Wand, the most powerful wand in the Wizarding world, and Dumbledore's tomb, to make sure that when Harry dies, the wand won't have any true owner. So the trio is happy that the Voldemort's over, but mourning over the loss of their friends and fellow allies. And then we get to the epilogue. We find out that Harry and Ginny got married, Ron and Hermione got married, and they have a bunch of kids together. Hermione is now the head of the Ministry of Magic. The trio are now Aurors, and the book ends with the trio sending their children off to Hogwarts for a couple of their first years. When Harry's youngest son, Albus Severus, says, What happens if I'm in Slytherin house? Harry then tells Albus that he was named after two headmasters of Hogwarts, and one of them was a wizard, and one of them was the bravest man that he ever knew. We all know who he's talking about. Only one of those names is a Slytherin, and the book ends well. Harry Potter is one of the best-selling series of all time, and J.K. Rowling the author is a rags to riches story in the works, writing the book when she was fighting the Great Depression. That's all for this video. See you next time. Bye!